This photography tutorial is designed to help you better preserve your objects, create a digital record, and upload the image to the Maine memory network. Today's workshop will address the following topics. Why do we need to photograph objects? How do we choose material? Setting up a photography studio, transporting and handling historical objects, camera settings, composing the photograph, taking the picture, and what to do when you're done shooting. We photograph objects that are two-dimensional but oversized or fragile. We also photograph all three-dimensional objects. You can use a scanner to make a digital copy of sturdy, small, two-dimensional objects. Here's some examples of things in the Maine Historical Society collection that we can photograph. The materials you choose to photograph and then put up on the Maine memory network should represent a variety of objects and content in your collections. Materials can include books, letters, maps, newspapers, photographs, postcards, ephemera, daguerreotypes, and other two-dimensional material. Material can also include jewelry, hats, mirrors, toys, baskets, furniture, equipment, and large three-dimensional objects. The size of the objects you want to photograph will determine your studio setup. Plan ahead for what you will photograph and what space you will need for a studio. For small objects like these, we only need a small space. For large objects, consider setting up in a larger space. Setting up your photography studio may be easier than you think. You can set up a studio almost anywhere that has a power source. Consider using a classroom, a multi-purpose room, a gallery, or any small space within your library, museum, or historical society, or school. These are the items you will need to set up your studio. A small table to place your objects on, a small table to use for shooting, lights, such as these clamp lights or scoop lights, light bulbs, these ones are 200 watts, light stands, light diffusers, rolled white paper that can either be cut and taped to the wall behind you and rolled over the table for the seamless backdrop, or use a backdrop system like I have here. You will also need your camera, battery, memory card, and a tripod. Additional items that are handy are scissors, tape, power strips, and extension cords. Because we are using these lights, it's unnecessary to use any natural light coming from windows or any other light coming from the room. When you're ready to start taking pictures, it's a good idea to block out the light from the windows and turn off any overhead lights. Start by setting up your lights, one on either side of your table. You'll need to set up your light stands first, and then attach your clamp light to the light stand. You may end up moving your lights around, but for now, it's a good idea to use symmetrically placed lights to get an even light source over the objects you are photographing. Place the nylon light diffusers over the clamp light. This will give us a nice even light and will reduce the harshness of the raw light bulb. Be careful because these lights are hot. It's a good idea to turn them off every now and then. We use a seamless backdrop to create a floating effect for the object. It also eliminates the seam of a background. We recommend that you use white paper for your backdrop. We recommend using a tripod for a couple of different reasons. The first is to help prevent a blurry image. When we hand hold a camera and we're taking a picture like this, it's easy to move it around and maybe get a blurry image. Another reason is that because we're using these lights, it takes some time for the camera to register the image. And whilst it's registering the image, you want the camera to be stationary, also preventing the blurry image. Another reason for using the tripod is safety. Safety for your historical object. If you're hand holding your camera, you run the risk of actually dropping your camera on the historical object. So that's why we recommend using a tripod. You can adjust the height and the angle of your tripod to help you make that perfect shot. When transporting and handling historical objects, safety is one of our main concerns. The first thing you want to do is check yourself. You don't want to be wearing any jewelry such as dangling bracelets or long necklaces that could touch the object. The same goes for long scarves or any kind of baggy clothing that could touch the object or prevent you from handling it properly. The other thing you want to do is have clean hands and make sure that your shoes are tied. You're going to want to have a clear path from the original location of the object, such as in your collection storage, in your museum or library, to where you're going. You're going to want to pack it safely, put it in a box, or however you're going to prepare it to transport. And then make sure you have a clear way to get it from point A to point B. Point B is going to be your studio. You're going to want to have a clean table to put the objects on when you arrive with them. Make notes of which items you are photographing and record any identifying information. It's a good idea to keep track of which items you're photographing so you can enter that information later when you're making your catalog record on the Maine memory network. When picking up a historical object, there are a few things you must always do. Make sure to support the base. Use both your hands when carrying. Wear gloves when necessary. And don't ever hold anything from its original handle. The handle or strap or other appendage of the object may not be as sturdy as it looks, and therefore it should not be used. Place your object in the center of the shooting space and where you envision a good photograph can be made. I don't recommend that you move your object too much once you've placed it on the table. For large or heavy items, it's a good idea to use the buddy system. Find somebody that you can work with to transport the object, either from its original location to the studio, but also from the table where your object is to your shooting space. In this tutorial, we will be working with digital cameras. There are a lot of different types of digital cameras out there on the market, but this tutorial is designed to help you photograph objects regardless of what kind of camera you have. The camera we are using, this Nikon, has an attachable lens system. You may also have a smaller point-and-shoot camera that has a built-in lens system, also known as an optical lens or an optical zoom. The day before you plan to shoot, it's a good idea to check your camera. Make sure you have charged batteries and lots of free space on your memory card. It's also a good idea to locate your camera's manual and have that handy the day of the shoot so you can refer to it with any specific questions. The first thing you want to do is turn on your camera. Because we're using a light system, we don't need to use the flash. Locate the flash icon on your camera and press the button until the flash is turned off. Because the Maine memory network has standards for high-resolution images, we must set the camera to capture the largest file size possible. In your settings, locate Image Size and select it. Choose the largest file size that you can and select that. The white balance refers to how your camera interprets the light that we use for the shoot. Go into your camera setting and locate the white balance navigation. Set the white balance for auto. That will give an automatic reading of the light we use. For your shooting setting, you may not want to choose the auto because it may override your flash setting. Instead, turn the dial to P for program, or sometimes it might say picture. This will allow you to shoot with some of the automated features while controlling others. The goal for photographing objects is to get the camera close to the object so you do not need to zoom in on it too much. Try not to rely on your zoom features to get a good shot. Composition refers to the structure of your photograph. A good idea is to visualize what you'd like your photograph to look like before you set up the shot. It's also important to recognize what the most important side is when taking a photo. Here's what I mean. All of your historical objects tell a story. When we look at this souvenir Longfellow House picture, we notice a couple different sides. The front has an image of the Longfellow House, but the back has some text information. It's up to you to decide what the most important side is and put that in the center of your shot. This ladle has some identifying information on its handle. This doesn't necessarily mean that we want to compose our shot from the top down, but we do want to make sure that that information on the handle is included in the picture. This basket has a lot of intricate details on it, and you want to make sure that your image is close in so you can see those details and appreciate the story that they tell. When we're arranging composition, there's a few things to remember. One is that you want to fill your frame. That is, you want your object to take up a lot of space in the center of the image, leaving a small white border around the edge. You want that border to be even and pretty symmetrical. So I'm going to move these ones out of the way so we can talk about one of the objects. So remember, we're putting our image right in the center of our shot so that way we don't have to move it too much anymore. So you want to use your tripod and bring your camera here. As we mentioned in the last slide, we're talking about bringing the camera as close to the object as possible. Use your viewfinder to make your composition in the picture. Use your tripod's levels to raise the angle or to adjust the height. Once you have the composition the way you like it, start making some pictures. I recommend making a lot of photos of the same object. We'll call these drafts. Make maybe 5 or 6 drafts and review each one after you take the picture. See where you can improve on your composition and your lighting from the image before. Afterwards, when you're looking at all your pictures on your computer, you can choose the very best draft. You're now ready to start making pictures. Take your first photograph and review it. Now that you're done photographing, it's time to break down your studio, but first, you need to pack your historical objects safely for transport back to their home location. Breaking down your studio can be an easy process. If you're working with a team, assign tasks for everybody. It's important to stay organized when you're breaking down your studio, so that way the next time you set up, you'll have everything you need right in its place. Now that you have completed your first photo shoot, you are ready to review and edit your images on the computer. Transfer the images to the computer by either ejecting the memory card from the camera and placing it into a card reader, or in some cases, directly into the computer. You can also use a cable to connect the two devices. It's a good idea to create a file management system that works for your team. For example, create a folder on your computer called Historical Objects, and within it, create several subfolders, categorized either by date, by collection, by project, or by photographer. Open up your pictures and review all the drafts. Choose one image to upload to the main memory network for each object. Open that image in Photoshop to determine if you need to alter it in any way. You may need to crop the image if there is too much white space around the object. You may need to make other adjustments. Refer to your Photoshop software support manual or online help for assistance with Photoshop editing. Save the file to your folder using a file name that is appropriate for your organization, such as its accession number. At this point, you are ready to catalog a record and should refer to your main memory network cataloging instruction manual. To wrap up, let's briefly go over what we learned in today's tutorial. The reason we photographed objects depended on their size, shape, and condition. Select objects from your collection that help tell a story about your town's history. You can set up a basic photo studio almost anywhere. Make sure you have 2 tables, 2 clamp lights, 2 light stands, light diffusers, your seamless backdrop, a tripod, your camera, and a power source. When handling and transporting fragile and historical objects, remember these tips. Check yourself and your environment to make sure that nothing will interfere with the handling or transporting of the object. Always support the base of the object. Never hold an object by its handle. Move slowly and use the buddy system for large or heavy items. Your basic camera settings should include turning off the flash, selecting the largest file size, selecting an automatic white balance, and shooting in the P or program mode. Refer to your camera manual for any specific questions. Your composition should reflect the best side of the object, the side that tells its story. Move your tripod close to the object so the object fills the frame, is centered, and has an even, small border around its edge. Take several photographs of the same object, making drafts, and review each shot until you are satisfied with one. When you are done photographing, turn off your camera. Pack the historical objects safely for transport and break down your photo studio. Transfer your photos from the camera into the computer. Review the photos and choose which ones you will use for cataloging. Make minor adjustments in Photoshop if needed. Now consult your Maine Memory Network Cataloging Guide. For the Maine Historical Society, I'm Danny Fazio. Thanks for watching our photography tutorial, and I look forward to seeing your photos online.